In today's era of card gaming and collecting, it's the easiest it's ever been to obtain and gather deck lists and strategy guides on any given deck in any given card game. You can read or watch hours of contents before ever touching a single pack or card, and yet with all these valuable resources, players and neckbeards alike show up to locals for the 17th time in a row with their half-baked deck and game plan, working so hard the housing market could collapse at any given moment due to all the excess building materials, all to bring their bad takes to the internet and say, "Game bad." When all that could be solved with just a little accountability, critical thinking, and help. Help from a YouTuber. Your beautiful, totally not bald YouTuber guy who thinks they might know just a little bit more than you. Insert me. I'm YouTuber guy. I'm the one that's going to help you today get better at building your decks. My name's Austin, and I've been playing card games since I was a kid. I've experienced all levels of gameplay across my tenure, and I believe my multi-decade hyperfixation has allowed me some insight that will help me teach you how to get better at deck building in card games. And today, I'm going to take you through my deck building philosophy for Union Arena and show you how that can apply to the wider TCG environment. It's my goal to provide you with some new perspective in modern deck building or expand upon the seeds that were already planted long before you came across this video, or in simpler terms, teach you why you suck at deck building. For today's video, I'm going to be using the Purple Songs deck from SAO Volume 2 to go over my modern deck building philosophy guide. Now let's get cracking. Most players, especially but not entirely limited to newer players, pick decks based on an artistic value over a mechanical one, which is natural and fine. I'm not knocking that. If I go to a new restaurant, I'm not trusting the server's opinion on a menu item that I don't normally like. I'm going to stress test the menu with something I already like to see if I want to get exploratory in the jungle that they have on this piece of paper in front of me.
There's a reason most of my Gundam TCG collection went into this really expensive emu deck.
What the hell was that? Anyways, you shouldn't choose a new deck in a new game unless you really like the way it looks. And, you know, that just makes the most sense, right?
Unless you want to win.
Alright, then. Well, the difference between a player's growth being stunted or nurtured is the comprehension of this idea I call the game plan, and most people usually do call it the game plan. It's a unique guideline and playstyle designed by the R&D department of any given gaming company that, if followed, should lead to victory at least some of the time.
Basically, it's how I'm gonna whoop that ass.
If you cannot grasp the concept of how your deck operates and flows throughout a game, let alone how it operates into the wider meta, then you will face shortcomings en masse. This sounds like a no-shit concept, but many players start with and sometimes never escape from this pitfall. I myself still remember and look forward to each new understanding of card games that I am involved with throughout my years and the new heights that it allows me to reach. I have experienced the highs and lows as a card game player. I spent a long time being stubborn and allowing my unmoving nature to force me into obscurity even at the local levels when it came to my gameplay performance. And it wasn't until I finally took some accountability for myself and saw the light that I could finally start healing from the source, or the root. This goes hand in hand with deck building. You cannot play a card game without deck building, and if your deck is oversaturated with pet cards and or bad ratios, you're asking to drown yourself out of the game. If we care for the foundation all the way up to the roof, our creation can flourish and serve our game plan for a long time to come. Every card game has an assortment of cards that allow and serve various functionalities to let you win the game. Duh, right? Most card games have creatures or characters, and some impermanent type card like events that power up your characters or gather resources towards your card economy or mana system. A lot of players end up struggling around this point and assigning these cards their various roles outside of the game, and that's where I come in, your Knight in Holofoil armor. As stated before, I'll be using Purple Song as a deck for our video today to give examples. So in any given Union Arena deck, you have a baseline of 18 to 24 cards that are guaranteed slotted into your deck list. Your 3 unique life triggers, your color, your final, and your special, which are basic utility provided to every other deck just to be able to give you an edge in certain scenarios, as well as your 10 to 12 zero-drop cards that allow you to start generating early and get your early game plans off, so you can actually start playing when you hit that full curve turn. Now, at this point, I need you to start considering your deck as a sandwich, and so far you've basically just gathered the bread with the zero drops and the special final color triggers. The next step is not going to be to get the condiments and the toppings. You'll certainly pick the meat, or in the case of a deck build, your big boys / late game characters. In this deck, we have 3 options, and one of them is really just a pseudo finisher, but we have the 4-drop Kirito, the Asuna that provides impact, as well as the Raid Yuna that provides damage too. 4-drop Kirito, blowing bodies off the opponent's front line, impact from the Asuna, the ability to grant any of those bodies damage too. Perfect, we know how we're going to end the game, but now we must gather our condiments and other toppings and flavors to truly tie this whole thing up in a nice bow. Now how can we best facilitate and abuse these larger, troublesome bodies? Assuming the card pool is at your fingertips.
Thanks, Internet.
Some research would lead you to find the special trigger which we carelessly threw into the pile, because who doesn't max out on standard removal, right? You'll notice it has a unique gimmick, outside of it being a mentioned Song's Affinity card, which also allows you to loop characters from the sideline back to your hand and then onto the board active, in all one fell swoop. This gives us much more insight into the philosophy of the deck and solidifies the game plan that this deck has. Now let's fill out the deck with some advantage engines and energy generation to give us our final product. Here's the deck, and now how do we characterize these cards and the function they truly serve inside any given game state? Well, here's the 4 categories I use when categorizing cards: starters, economy, dual utilities, and finishers. Starters would be identified as your lower cost raid bases, your 0 to 1 drop cards that filter off the top of the deck. These are generally the cards that say draw 1, pitch 1, or look at X top cards of your deck and add X cards, or any characters that your raid bosses will utilize once energy generation has been established. Of course, Ubiquitous DB is also an amazing starter for this deck, even though it's a 2-drop, but this card is just so good. Our economy cards are best seen as cards that generate 2 energy, gather resources to hand or sideline, etc., such as our 2-drop AG and our 2-drop Yuna, as well as Longing and Bath. We also would be able to consider some other cards in the deck as economy cards, but they also serve extra purposes. The reason that the AG and the Yuna would be considered economy cards is they load up our grave, and the Longing as well, is because they load up our sideline or stack the top of our deck to ensure we're either drawing the cards that we need or have enough resources in the places that we need to resolve our later effects. Dual utility cards are exactly as described. They generally serve multiple purposes as the game plan progresses. These cards generally help in the middle to late game due to their multiple purposes design, and they also have multiple roles to accomplish in a game. These cards would be like our 3-drop Silica or our 3-drop Raid Yuna, and even the cards we labeled as economy can serve in this role as we enter the final approaches of the game. The Silica draws a card as well as generates an extra energy, and it also starts off at 3,000 power, which means that this Yuna up here that also starts off at 3,000 power can buffer to a 4k body. Another dual utility card is this Smile for You card, because while you could consider this a endgame finisher or whatever the case may be, this is generally going to be the card that gets you off the ground, and this is the resource loop you're looking to achieve with this card and other cards in your deck, looping it back to the deck and drawing it every turn basically. And finally, finisher cards. These are the cards that close out games. Generally, finishers have rage-inducing lines of text such as Snipe, Impact 1, or Impact 1, Damage 2, or even your opponent must block this character's attack if able. We identify these cards earlier. Kirito, Asuna, and Yuna are some of our larger finishes, but we can't forget about our low-to-the-ground offensive bodies that apply real pressure once we've established the deck's flow. 0-drop Agiel in 1-cost Lisbeth are both formidable power for the low cost, and then buffing them by 1 to 2k with the 3-drop Raid Yuna turns them from formidable to dominant pressure that can be the deciding factor between closing a game and losing a game. With all this knowledge and effort we just applied, we can now categorize our entire deck and articulate the functionality of any given card inside the strategy. This is how I separate and break down any of the decks I'm building and playing inside the Union Arena card game as well as other card games I dabble in. Now before this point starts to achieve a redundancy, let's carry on to the next one. Now before we dive into this point, as deeply as we can, I want to express and exacerbate the absolute endless tragedy you will face if you do not fully and begrudgingly accept the full scope and reality of what I'm saying. Got it?
See what I did there? The title card says redundancy and the sentence used a ton of redundant language. Oh my fucking god. Alright, you get the point. I'm not even sure that anybody's watching this video at this point.
Redundancy is a pitfall anybody can fall into. Tunnel vision is only a natural flaw that we all had to fight at some point in our life, because seeing the entire picture generally tends to be a little bit more of an enlightening experience overall. Good card good, so play as many as you can. Wrong, stupid, and never let me catch you listening to a goofy-ass Yu-Gi-Oh player saying, "Oh, there's never any such thing as too much drawing cards."
Shut up, Joey Wheeler. Real games have mana systems and limitations that restrict people from entering Sims God mode every single round of an event. There's no reason you need 14 boss monsters. You will fail to even start the game by oversaturating your late game. You do not need 16 to 20 draw cards in your 50 card list when you're only allotted 3 to 4 actions on an average turn. Finding the proper ratios and percentages for your deck and all the cards in it is a supreme upgrade to your overall growth as a player that leads us elegantly into our final point. The tablet for my script died, so now we're switching to the paper script. Boo! The card game YouTuber wants me to use basic math and or acquire the skill or utilize tools to navigate ratios and statistics. Ew. Shut up, likely grown man. Your tears are going to satiate my inner demons. It is the year of the great 2026, my brother in Christ. They make programs for anything, and majority of these services are offered for use free of charge to any individual that can find it. Hyperbole and comedic value aside, I don't expect every player, especially not the average one, to know what a hypergeometric calculator is, let alone how to use one. I shock myself and others every time I use one of these things to great success. In the description, I will link a hypergeometric calculator that I use regularly, as well as a video explaining how to operate one properly. But to give you an explanation from my words, which I'm kinda dumb, a hypergeometric calculator is a tool people can use to determine how likely you are to receive a specific variable inside of a set pool of variables. I utilize this tool to determine how likely I can rip 2+ starters off the top of the deck in any of my opening hands. Being anywhere around 80 to 85% minimum on seeing starters in your opening hand is the most basic key to self-assuring that the deck you're currently crafting is on the right path. You can start tweaking and adjusting other ratios once you have this foundation established across all of your decks, and begin to even test new tech ideas that you might have once you have a good foundation to work on. That goes back to that whole game plan thing, and our early game plan is key to making sure our late game plan can be enacted. If we don't have the numbers, the ratios, and the percentages to be able to make sure that at least 80 to 85% of the time we are taking off in the game, then we're never going to see success. And that is why math is really, really important for card games. So today we learned key details and insider tips on crafting and cultivating the makings of a winning deck, and now we understand some of the math and science used in deck crafting. We also looked at new ways to characterize our decks just beyond card pretty, and even how to avoid those dastardly pitfalls and redundancy. See what I did there? I hope I was able to help some of you reach new milestones in your TCG journey, or at the very least expand upon the grounds that were already there and laid in your mind before you stumbled into this small corner of the internet. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking around and giving this video a chance. And if you really liked it, please consider leaving a like and subscribe. And comment below if you like this video and want to see more like it. I want to produce helpful content to bolster your TCG experience, and again, thanks. I've been Austin with A to Z Collects, and I'll catch you on the next one. And don't worry, you don't actually suck at deck building.